going on, the guy can tell them what to do.
Our generator company, they want to repair a $36 piece and it's going to cost 500 and some odd bucks just to come and repair it.
Yeah.
I'm going to find somebody else.
Power walls are better.
My wife's car, there's this little plastic piece on the rear windshield wiper. It literally just snaps on. Called about it. It's not even the size of my pinky, and they want $40 for it. Plus, if you take it up there and have them put it on, which I don't know why you would, they claim you need a special tool, but it looks to me like you just. It's crazy. $40 for a piece of plastic.
They don't make their money on selling their cars, they make their money on services.
The pieces that you have to buy, yeah. It's crazy. And the plastic's worth nothing. It's the fact that they flew it all over the countryside to get it here, put their name on it.
Specialty part.
Yeah, very specialty.
I don't know why they just don't make everything the same.
I know.
Makes too much sense. You can't do that.
I ran the world.
Everybody.
God forbid.
Okay.
Oh shoot.
Thanks.
You ready?
Battery's low, but we'll see. I'll rely on Bruce.
Good. All right. I'd like to call the special select board meeting of Monday, April 29th, 2024 to order. Any additions or deletions to the agenda?
I move to delete from the agenda the consideration of select board pay orders.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Item 4, announcements and correspondence. For anyone who doesn't know, this Saturday, May 4th, is Green Up Day. There are bags available here at the town office and at the transfer station. Anything else we need for that? No?
Trucks will be at the, be a truck at the mill and
They're not
No,
doing
they're not putting the
trucks,
trucks
because they're down so
Oh.
many.
The little ones, barely even running.
Yeah,
okay.
so everybody should just bring their stuff to the transfer station.
Yeah.
Good information.
Item 5, visitors and concerned citizens. Got anything, Rich, as a citizen?
No. Probably number 6.
Item 6, town officials business. 6A, emergency management director, approve updated local emergency management plan.
So I apologize for being put on your special agenda meeting. Unfortunately, I'm in classes Monday and Wednesday all the way until August. I'm doing my EMT. I don't know if you guys know, I'm on the rescue squad, Londonderry Rescue Squad.
Here, every
also.
day.
Every day, yes, it's becoming a full-time job. But I did, this is an electronically filed form. I did add Martha and Melissa onto it. I also put the transfer station down as a emergency hazardous waste in the event of flooding or whatever, as a temporary thing. So Esther's on there, Martha's on there, and Melissa's on there now. And it's basically a standard form that's done every year. And it's now electronically filed, which makes it a little bit easier sometimes. So if there's any questions or... So the board would have to approve it, and then when I go back home, I will hit file. And today's date, the select board approved it on the 29th of April.
Sounds good.
That's it?
That's it.
Anyone gonna make that motion?
I move to adopt the 2024 update to the Town of Londonderry Local Emergency Management Plan and authorize the Select Board Chair to execute any documents necessary for this action.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Everybody have a great evening.
You too, thank you.
Thanks.
See ya.
Item 7, old business. 7A, town office renovation project, consider project funding.
Well, there's, these two issues go together, not only the project funding, but the project itself, and maybe this should all just be brought together, but as John's going to explain, the bids came in pretty darn good, but roughly $1.6 million plus some extras. Our bond is $1.3 million, so we're gonna have to find additional dollars or cut parts of the project. And we do have a healthy amount of money in the reserve fund, town buildings reserve fund, of 290,000, well, by July 1, it'll be
July 1 will be
290,000, so we could park some of that, make that available. My only thinking on some of that is that whatever, if there are things that we're gonna not do, they're never gonna get cheaper. And might as well just get it done while we can get it, while qualified people are here getting it done, and John overseeing much of it, so.
The disruption is one time
Yeah.
as well.
Right, and also because, and John's going to explain much more of this, that they're not going to potentially not start for several months. That gives us a little opportunity to, beat the bushes for some additional money potentially. So anyway,
Johnson Grocio. Let me just describe how we got to this point. It's just kind of a brief summary. We put the bid drawings together, the architectural and engineering drawings based on the scope that Shane and Tina and Kelly and I worked through. Put the project out to bid. We had 5 interested parties, ultimately 2 submitted bids. I'm glad we got 2. I'm glad we got 2 bids, and I'm really pleased with those companies, GPI and All Seasons Construction. I've worked with both of them in the past, so I'm looking forward to the next phase of this project. Unfortunately or not, this conversation is the hard part. And in anticipation of having to do this, I put together a whole bunch of alternates. And if you've all seen the memo, which I think is in part of the packet, this is the point where we have to talk through these things, select them all, select some of them, understand what that final number is, and I think from Shane's perspective where that money's coming from, and ideally come to a decision. I don't think there's any easy decisions on this memo, but I think what I'll do right now is I'll just kind of talk through each of them so you can all hear why they're on this list, why I put them here, and then see if there's any questions about the list. So, as Shane noted, about 1.6 million for the base bid from these 2 companies, so that was really close. I was very pleased with that number. And then, so here I go through the alternates. Refinishing the ceiling to get the popcorn out, which is a very dated look. It's a very aesthetic thing we want to update. So you can see the bids on those 2 alternates. As a general rule, as a general note, a lot of the alternates were very similar. They're quite close. A couple of them weren't. Moving on from tonight, I'll have to talk with whoever the apparent bidder, the apparent winner of the bid is, and understand that they've got the right parts and pieces, and we're understanding it. So there's a little bit more work in knowing what's in these numbers.
Yeah, just look at some of these, there's some drastic.
Yeah, differences.
2 or 3 of them, there's a drastic difference.
yeah.
Number 2, it's refinishing the wood floor in Shane's office and Jeremiah and Sandy's office. Right now, as the base bid, it's just carpet tile. So a little bit of extra money there to refinish that wood. Part of the
Can
project.
those floors be sanded?
We don't know that.
We haven't pulled up the carpet
We
yet.
haven't pulled up the carpet. Yep. So my thinking was, what's the lowest cost item? That's going to be carpet tile right over the old wood, and then we'll see once we pull that existing carpet up if that's worthwhile. I will also note as I go through this, these are all adds, so you can see that how I set this up. There's a reason why I did that rather than making some of them adds or deducts. In my opinion, the adds are a better approach because we are shown the full value of the alternate. If they're deducts, the contractor might not show us the full value, and we won't know because if we deduct it, it won't be in the contract. We won't have that documentation. So that's why I set them all up as adds. So let me move through this because I know there's a number of them. In Shane's office and Jeremiah and Sandy's office, I have built-in casework. It's for storage. Let me see. Oh yeah, that's one. There's a big
There's a
difference.
big difference,
It's essentially wood cabinets, bottoms and uppers for storage. There's other probably more cost-effective storage solutions if we got to that point. Number 4, dense packing all the wall cavities around the building. I don't know that that's necessary, which is why it's an alternate. We've hit the really major energy measures for the building. We're insulating the basement. There's already a ton of insulation in the attic, and as we make the changes, we're going to maintain that insulation. So that's really the low-hanging fruit in terms of insulation. Like the carpet or the wood floor in the other room, when we pull walls apart and we can actually see what's behind all this sheetrock, which very well might be fiberglass bats, I might just leave it alone and not do anything with it. Number 5, so this would be replacing all of the windows in the front half of the building. When I put this one on here, I said, those windows, they're really not good. I know Kelly would be really mad at me if we kept them. But they could stay if we really had to make that decision. And this is an example. I think we all want to replace those windows and have something that's going to last for 40 years at least.
What does this replace them with?
Double hungs, Anderson or Marvin quality. Aluminum.
Another wood window.
Yeah, aluminum clad wood. So we're gonna have better maintenance from the exterior. Alt 6, this is another kind of a harder one to swallow. I know that the roof shingles on the front portion of the building are in better quality. I think there's about 10 years left on them, but this is one of those areas where you're gonna have to spend the money in 10 years and it's gonna be more expensive, and you might as well have all the roofers do it now.
Why the big difference between
Yeah.
the two?
Precisely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had GPI ask me very specifically about that scope, and I answered it in one of the addenda.
Yeah.
So I gotta believe that the actual number to replace the shingles on the front half is between those two.
Yeah.
So that's an example of something that, if we were gonna go back to GPI after tonight, I would need to go through this and verify that they're not missing a piece of the scope. Tonight I think, I would hope that there's a number that we all arrive at. I need to verify that as part of my diligence in reviewing their bid. So solar panels on this south-facing roof up here. That's simply the solar panels and all the electrical equipment that accompanies it.
And it's structural work in the roof to hold it, correct?
That's number 8. So that's the next one.
Sorry.
And really, I split these two up because I really want to be putting in framing lumber up in that roof while we've got the crews here.
Yeah.
And we can have, integrated solar or whoever the subcontractors are show up at any point in the future.
How much solar would that be?
Excuse me?
How much solar would that produce?
I can count up the I don't know. I put as many panels on the roof plan
Okay.
as we could structurally fit. So that's a question that we would dig into.
The solar company comes, don't they? They come to your house, my house. I don't put up stuff for them to hook it to. Don't they bring their own?
What do you mean? You mean
The
electrical?
framing, the framing.
It's probably based on the existing.
Yeah.
They need blocking for their tracks to bolt into.
Yeah.
Yeah, without going too far into detail, the framing in any building 100-something years old, if anyone's been in the attic, you'll see that these are basically field-built trusses. And truss they're field-built, meaning there's no calculation. There's 1x4 webbing that supports midspan of the rafters. A building this old, it's very difficult to actually calculate what the ability of those rafters is to support because we have all that webbing. So the solution, time and time again, is simply to put a beam right down perpendicular with the rafters, and then that'll pick up the weight of the solar panels. And that's the solution. That's the cost of work in alternate 8. Number 9. This is the MERP topic. So this one's a little bit different than all the rest. We were potentially looking at a start date this spring, which means we'd be too early to access MERP funding. Is that correct, Shane, if my memory is correct?
That's my understanding, yeah.
And we wanted to make, I was trying to pull as much mechanical equipment and insulation out of the project so we could pay for it next year through that funding vehicle. If we start in September, I think we'll just be able to roll that all in.
It depends, they've not announced the grant rounds yet for the implementation of it.
Yeah, so it's still a little bit of a wait and see.
Yeah, I can I'll make some calls.
Yeah. And that's probably a good example of something to be done in the next few months.
15 to 20 for Saturday.
The last one, number 10, is the generator conduit. It currently runs down the back of the building, across the south lawn, and comes in over here. Because we'll be digging up the parking lot, we're just looking at the cost to bring it in and eliminate that long trench work. I think we can see for the cost of it, that may not be worthwhile.
Any idea why that's so expensive?
I don't. They're gonna have the equipment on site, they have the trench, there's conduit.
Maybe they're considering like having to repave or something.
We're already repaid.
It's already-
It's underneath
Yeah.
it.
Maybe they included it as all. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, this is,
Use the existing conduit?
you can go out there and clean the glue joint, Shane. So that's a good example of another thing to sit down with the successful bidder and make sure that we all are on the same page
Yeah.
with what these things cost.
Because that thing seems pretty cheap. You just run in a trench. Conduit's not that expensive.
I mean, it's,
I mean,
It hasn't come down very
Yeah.
much.
but it ain't crazy.
It's a lot of conduit, I think.
Well,
I remember when they put it in.
depending on the size, like, just for example, last year, one stick of 4-inch was almost $200 for 10 feet.
Wow.
For the
10
larger,
feet?
one stick, yeah, of 4-inch.
Right.
And
And that's
I
what
don't know
schedule
if it's come down.
60 or 80.
that would be Schedule 80,
Schedule
below-
40.
going below grade.
Maybe, yeah, probably.
Yeah.
It's not inexpensive, that's for sure.
No.
So that's where we are with all of those alternates. They're not easy, I don't think they're easy decisions, most of them. But that, ideally gives us some wiggle room when it comes to, choosing what the resulting bid number will be. The last thing to add, two more things just about time. GPI is in at 220 days. All Seasons listed 300 in their bid, but All Seasons did follow up by email last week, telling us they could do it in 240. So I think they're trying to get the job. And then finally, I can say that GPI, they listed August, September as a start date, which from your end, that seems like a good timing.
Yeah,
I
a
did-
lot of planning.
I did speak with Dave from All Seasons on the phone. We have a similar start date, so they're about the same.
And other expenses here are, we got $1.3 million. But at the same time, and I've given it, the board had asked me for a breakout of costs that we've incurred so far. And the design work so far is basically $120,000 is what we've, I think we've paid all that. Yes, we paid that amount. I presume there's additional funds, invoicing coming. And then we're gonna have to get a trailer for the clerk and the treasurer to do business here. So whatever the cost that's gonna be, there'll be something. So those are the only ones that really come to mind. We're gonna have to clear out the basement.
Temporary power, temporary internet.
Yeah, so, I mean, just in the,
I don't have
Portable
any idea.
toilet.
just looking at the total project cost, if we include all of the bid ads, it's $1.8 million. That's $500,000 more than what we have.
And even if we used all the 290,000 from the building reserve fund, that leaves us with 220,924 left to come up with.
How much are we funding the reserve fund every year? 120?
100.
100.
100?
It's already been voted on, so that 290 we're talking about includes
We're
the one just voted.
Yeah.
Right, we're already including
Yeah.
that.
But yeah, it doesn't, it's not all the all-in price either. I mean,
Yeah.
it's this, it's John, it's clerk of the works, it's the trailer, it's whatever else is gonna be out there.
And would we be able to, next year's budget, would we be able to pay for any of it by, or would it all be done by then probably?
It'll be done.
Yeah.
240 days from August.
Take the 300 day, man.
Yeah, right?
We could apply some fund balance. If we
I'd
have-
take a little
well,
more time.
If we get our
over that.
money back from FEMA,
Right, and
we
that,
may have a pretty good fund balance.
right.
at
Is
the
that
end of
worth
the
holding
year.
our breath for?
Well,
Is that
No,
worth
things
holding
are-
our breath for?
Things are starting to move, it seems.
Yeah,
we
I'm
did,
hoping,
we do have a pretty good unassigned fund balance.
yeah. Well, not right now, because
Well, right,
it looks
but,
bad
you know,
because,
if we get all
Yeah.
or most of our money from FEMA, I mean, we had enough last year to spend $100,000 to reduce taxes.
yeah,
And so that's a couple of $100,000 there as well. But, I mean, it's a tough decision in a way. I mean, it's a lot of money.
I think that it seems right to figure out a way to make this like a stepping off point and get started and commit to everything we possibly can. And then I don't know if there's a possible way of, if we don't add in any of this stuff, but maybe at the end we've found some money and the contractor is willing and available, we could say, okay, you know, we did get money to do, you know, alternate 1, 2, and 3 or whatever. I mean, maybe we sign a contract on the main scope of work and keep the alternates to like, maybe we just say at 50% complete, we come back to the table and say, all right, we're on track, we're over budget, or, you know, whatever, just to see.
Is it possible to do it like that, or once the original bid is approved, isn't there some kind of change fee or something that goes along with making any additions or?
Right. So ideally, we choose all of the alternates we want before contract signed. The successful bidder honors the amount they've given as part of their bid. It's all within the 60-day window of receiving bids. And then they just do the work. So for example, if we were gonna have the windows replaced, 6 months from now, the front windows, but we don't know that we're gonna do that work until we're halfway through the project. It's very likely that those windows themselves are gonna cost more. It will be subject to a change order, which would have the fees associated with it, unless we can negotiate something now. I mean, now is the time where we can say, look, here's where we are with the cash in the bank. We need to see what we, as you said, see what else we can get, and then pull the trigger on some more of these things. And see what the response is. And we could ask that question of both of them and see which one is more amenable. If one says, well, we'll just do a change order in 6 months, well, at least honor your labor costs or something, right, to help us get to that point.
Right.
So we can have that conversation. The other thing I would just say is that depending on which alternative is, the sequencing and the time of when that all happens is going to be really important. Not impossible, but very important. And then the last thing I'll add to that scenario is the fact of the matter is that coming up with 50%, what can we do, as you said later, makes the contractor's job more complicated. And they're really not going to be amenable to that. I think that Dave and Joe will go along with it, but not ideal for them. And just speaking from my perspective, I really want to make this as easy as possible for everybody.
I think it definitely depends on the alternate that we're talking about. If we were talking about re-roofing or something, that's something that they're not, they could re-roof at any time. That's not going to affect other work. If we're talking about insulation and they've already painted the walls, that's a deal breaker.
yeah.
Solar panels, that's something, as long as the framework is done,
Right.
the panels could be added at any time. So that may only apply to certain ones. I could certainly see it being complicated to, you know, you don't want to work backwards to go forward.
You know, I think we probably have some good options here with 5, 6, and 7. Window replacement, re-roofing, and PD panels. And that adds up to a decent amount of money as
And
well.
what about,
And the conduit.
yeah, and 10 too.
Absolutely, yep. And also for 10, since we're starting this project in September or so, they're not gonna be repaving the parking lot until next spring.
So you could do it, so we could add it back.
Yeah, I wouldn't expect that they'd be paving right at the end of the paving season, when all the paving contractors are very busy. They should just get it in line for 2025.
If we don't order the windows until halfway through the project and then they take 6 weeks to get here or whatever, isn't that
12 weeks.
12 weeks?
Yeah.
What's going on with everything inside and we got no windows, you know?
Oh, well, I think, you know, we would demo the existing, the windows can be a project unto itself. You know, there's some trim carpentry in there, there's gonna be exterior painting, which is gonna happen in 2025. We just wait to demo. I think that one is just, we would wanna get it done before construction's over, otherwise you gotta move furniture again to get at it.
Right.
So,
I think it only makes sense if that particular line item works with the flow of the project and the sequence of the project.
And we have used this option before, is borrowing from the cemetery commission because they have a sizable fund. And they usually give us a decent rate, better than you're gonna get from a bank.
I mean,
If they're
I
willing
guess
to.
I guess what I keep getting hung up on is, we know how much money we have, and yet we're talking about spending more. And I understand that, you know, this is a one-time project and we want to do it right, but it just seems like we don't have the money, we can't write the check. We don't have the money to add all these extra things on. So, I'm a little gun shy.
They
Just 'cause
got
it's
any
a-
wiggle room in their bid?
I mean, can they sharpen their
We're wiggling
pencils
around here like something on a
and
hook.
come back?
At this point, that'll push it off even longer, probably.
yeah, to the wiggle room in the bid, I would guess not. I mean, just the cost of that car part, it's the same thing in the construction industry. So I would assume, they're trying to go as low as possible and still, you know, make some money on it. There's a lot of questions that have come up in this discussion that's worthwhile speaking with one or both of them to go through that. And so, you know, there might be a little bit more work before we arrive at a bottom line number, which I think is perfectly appropriate.
I mean, GPI's number is attractive, but I see some areas where, you know, alternate one, for example, where they're $5,000 less. What other areas, you know, then they're $24,000, which is, you know, $16,000 more on all three. So it's kind of all over the map.
Yeah, and you know, I'll talk about the process in general. I gave them 4 weeks to put bids together. There's a lot of sub-trades that go into this project. And when you're just sending out drawings and emailing, you know, the all three, the casework subcontractor, and you get a number back 3 days before the bid is due. So I'm not defending the process or know specifically how they put them together. I know it's a challenging process.
I think
No, it's nice to understand that a little bit better. That,
Yeah.
if you look at the
Feel better.
two, for like alternate 3, that very well may be something that All Seasons would do in-house, and maybe GPI is looking for a subcontractor to do. So
Understood.
they have different ways of putting together a price.
So just following up on that, I would call up Dave and I would say, hey, you've got the cabinets, the casework, countertop, and uppers in those 2 offices, right? That's $8,600. Then I'd have the same thing with Joe. And ideally they both say yes, and that could be a reason why. Or, you know, Joe might say, you know, for GPI, I keep using the names interchangeably. He might say, well, let me get back to you. And that's the conversation.
You don't need top-of-the-line custom cabinets.
Well, and that might be an understanding that needs to be established too, you know,
Yeah.
because
I
they,
mean, we could get something from Home Depot.
it very well could be the the difference of someone's evaluation of what is suitable.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think it's uncommon to sort of set the tone of, you know, not quality, not craftsmanship, but quality materials. You know, there's the most expensive, the least expensive, and you pick somewhere on a scale of what you want to spend with the quality of the windows and the quality of the cabinetry. And
So in the case of that cabinetry, I picked Craftsman as a brand that establishes that standard that you're talking about. It's not the Wayfair or Home Depot.
Yeah.
I don't even know what the top of the line products are. So that establishes the quality. I don't require them to provide craft-made, but when they submit their paperwork, I'll verify that the performance standards are similar. Much in the same with the windows. I wanted aluminum exteriors on the windows. Marvin provides them, Pella provides them, Anderson provides them. So I have established a level of quality based on my judgment. It's verifying that they've interpreted the bidding documents the same way.
I'm amazed as I look at this and I see the discrepancies on both sides. How did they come out so close in the end?
Right?
I mean, great question.
I know from my own experience, like when I'm doing bids and stuff, so, you know, I'll do two different ones. Like I'll like, you know, throw a number out there that's like a gut feeling, and then break it all down. And 9 times out of 10, except for after COVID, they're pretty close. And you know, these guys might use a square foot price as like an outline, and then they start filling in blanks to build that number. So that's another way that you can get a wide variation, because they're coming up with a number that they know this project will cost, and then they just break it down into line items.
And it's like you said, Melissa, it's kind of all over the place.
Yeah. I'm actually cherry picking right now, and I'll tell you what I'd like the number to be.
Just to add to that a little bit more, is I would assume that a lot of contractors, they try to do their best to figure out the direct cost, the labor, the 2x4s. Then they look at who their competition is. Then they might look at this list and say, which ones are they most likely to accept or not accept? The bidders knew that we have the bond. So there's a little bit of playing around with the numbers to make it work. Not playing around in an unethical way, but putting a bid together.
There's a lot of considerations there.
Right.
For sure.
And I will say, and the last thing I'll just say is that there's a portion of this process that's an art, is putting these numbers together. It's not all, you know, technical, just add them up. And that we are probably seeing evidence of that in these numbers.
Well, I know if we sit here 5 years from now and talk about this, these numbers aren't gonna be the same.
No, they're gonna be another $500,000
Yeah.
at least.
Yeah,
We started off at
We
900.
started out at like a $500,000
Yeah, well,
7 years ago, probably.
yeah, and like 4 years ago, we were at 900,000, and then just
Yeah.
before COVID, last year, we were at 1.3, and now we're at 1.6, 1.6 plus. So it's, I mean, you guys know, it's just materials costs that are going nuts.
They got us in a spot, fee.
and I understand that, but that doesn't make the money appear.
No, no,
Still-
I'm not
still
saying it
don't have
does, I'm
money.
just saying that things have just gone nuts.
Right.
You know, is what I'm
Right.
saying,
Well, and that's why I was suggesting that we sign up for the part we can pay for, and then if we somehow get more money, then we add some of these wish list things, you know, as we can.
Well, here's what I'm looking at. If we went with GPI minus the wall insulation, the re-roofing, the solar panels, and the underground generator cabling, that would leave us with 134,886 left to come up with, which I think we could definitely
Yeah.
get from the cemetery commission at like a 2% or something is, I think last time we did it. Or something like that.
Yeah, 2%.
And that's not gonna hurt the cemetery commission, they have a very healthy fund.
Come back here.
Not to, go backwards, but I would almost say that I'm a big proponent of insulation.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the very few building products that actually pays for itself, like in relatively short order. I mean, walls are probably less than roof and basement, obviously, as far as a return on your investment, but I mean, even new windows,
Windows,
that's more
windows
like,
in there will help greatly.
Oh,
Those windows are terrible.
Yeah.
Even when the storm's closed, you can feel the breeze.
right, air sealing and insulation.
Yeah.
And windows are part of an air sealing
Yeah.
thing. Plus, the niceness of not having to battle with windows that's the biggest benefit of new windows, but it's still only R2 or less.
Right, our value increase is minimal.
Yeah.
It doesn't pay for itself.
No, the real benefit of new windows is the air seal.
And comfort. I think that's a good point.
yeah.
Yeah.
So if you add in the 8,000,
Not
it's
getting your
140.
fingers pinched.
Right, the lack of frustration.
Yeah, if you add in the insulation, that's 144, 86.
Right, it's a relatively small one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other three, you can save money.
And who knows what's in between those walls? It was the 70s.
Yeah, and I would.
I don't even know if they took down walls or moved walls. They probably didn't even do anything to the insulation.
I haven't seen, in my time here, I haven't seen any evidence of fiberglass insulation, which I would expect from the 70s.
But I don't know how much they, except for dropping the ceilings, how much
What they actually did.
what they actually
I mean,
did for,
Attitudes towards insulation have certainly changed since that time, so they might have said, oh, this is
I know
great,
it's
and it was
Bobby.
like minimal, you know. What's that?
I know as Bobby can look.
Why did you tell me that a while ago?
Because I just realized today, I took a poster off the wall and we had a wall, and I think there's a hole in the wall. In the office.
My guess would be that it would be insufficient, inconsistent, and,
Yes.
I mean.
So
at
if we
best.
took the lowest
Big.
bid on all of the alternates, it would be $193,724. If we took the lowest bid on each of them.
That
But
would
you're-
require some negotiating.
It's cherry picking, I know, but I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, that's significant.
Yeah.
And I, only know enough to be dangerous, because it's not what I do for a living, but just
Yeah.
seems like they could be closer together maybe on some things.
I mean, the one thing for sure is it's gonna be cheaper to do more than it is to do less
Yeah.
in the long run.
In the long
More
run.
efficient, yeah.
I think we'd be foolish not to do the windows.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, you spend $1 million and people are gonna come in, the windows are rattling in the front.
Do we need to cover the popcorn? We don't. but
No?
It's ugly.
Just from the perspective of, we're spending $1.5 million or so. And there's gonna be new light fixtures, new colors.
There'll be patchwork from,
Well, where I was going with this is that ceiling's gonna be an eyesore when we've just spent that much money
Yeah.
doing everything else. And you might hear about it from.
you don't leave yourself
Yeah.
open to that criticism when taxpayers.
Oh, we're gonna hear about something after one.
Yeah.
Is that on sheetrock?
This? I think so. I mean, those look like 12-foot sheets, 10 or 12. And my solution to that is just to go over it with 3/8 and tape it. And not take it down, because there's a ton of insulation above it too.
Right.
So pull the trim, put some new sheetrock up and tape it. That was the cheapest
Yeah,
thing I
let's
could
do
come
it.
up with. Yeah, and Tina's gonna, work under it all day.
Yeah.
Change- well, you'll be downstairs.
Thankfully, it didn't have asbestos in it, so.
The GPI got the price in there, I agree with.
Well, that one's very minimal.
I mean,
This is really the crux of how difficult, on one hand, this conversation is, but then kind of like a duh factor, like let's do these things on the other hand.
yeah.
Well, and that's, like you
I mean,
said.
we can
that's
wait
a-
on the solar
that's a
panels.
Challenge.
And there might, I don't know what the legislature's doing, but maybe there'll be future money for it.
And one thing I was thinking too, if we wait on them, we can get an actual figure we can get the right amount to do the whole office and not
Yeah.
anymore.
Yeah,
You mean do less than what I've got in here?
Yeah.
It could very well be an
Not
option.
just do what we need.
yeah.
Yep.
Based on those numbers, I would assume that's like maybe a 15 or 20.
I can tell you how many panels there are, but I don't know what the kilowatt per panel. And I would still recommend putting in as much structural support as we can, and I've got in the bid.
Yeah,
No, I
I
agree
think that
with that.
part, but
That
do
was
this,
the whole roof
put
up
on
and
solar
that, put
panels.
something out
I
there.
read in certain states, you're not getting much back if you generate more power than you need.
With net metering, there's not a lot of benefit to
Yeah.
overproducing.
There's 42 panels on the drawings.
That's significant,
Yeah.
yeah. So,
Which could don't use all that much.
Well, you've got
Well, we do-
other buildings too.
We do use a lot of power in this building lately.
It's not just this building though. Regardless of what the current net metering
We can do garage.
regulations are.
any town property could be balled into that.
Or, I don't know how that would work, but I'm just thinking the overall,
Yeah.
if I
you can
was a
assign
resident-
your-
if
You
I-
can assign your,
yeah. If I was just a resident in Londonderry, I'd say, well, we've got all these buildings. I don't know how the net metering works, but does it make sense to get as much as we can? And leave it at that.
Yeah. Well, I know I have net metering in my house, and it's the way that if you have meters in your own name, you can allocate 4 times a year. You can change. You can redirect kilowatts that you produce. So if I had 2 properties, or if the town had 4 properties or whatever, and you overproduced here, you could pay another town property bill with it.
we have 9. so
Yeah, it would.
bills.
You could cover this entire roof and the back parking lot probably and disperse it with the properties. So that, the size may not.
The transfer station uses the most.
Yeah. I think they are coming up with more technology for solar panels and making
Yeah.
it so, well, could possibly be cheaper in the
And I
years
think the
to come.
government programs are supporting the continuation of all the installations and stuff too, the 30% back.
Efficiency, if you
I don't
can
know.
get any efficiencies or not.
Yeah, if we
Or
can get
MERP.
grants for it.
Yeah.
Could be the MERP funding also.
MERP won't pay for car chargers and solar panels.
It will not.
That I do know.
Oh,
Which is
really?
why I have all that mechanical equipment.
I see. Oh, I did not know that.
So other mechanical equipment, we have car chargers?
No. What I mean to say is that the MERP program will pay for insulation, it will pay for heat recovery ventilators, boilers, air conditioning, lighting. It won't pay for solar panels and car chargers. So that's why I have the mechanical equipment and separated from the solar panels. And we don't have a car charger here, but we've got conduit in the ground and space in the panel for a future charging system.
Do you know if municipalities can receive the government credit? Like, if I personally went out and bought solar panels, I would get 30% back.
You pay taxes.
I think
What's
some
that?
of those
You
credits.
pay
are
taxes.
If you don't pay taxes, you probably don't get it because it comes back as a.
Credit.
And I think some of those credits are getting phased out too.
They were, and they just renewed
Did
them.
they?
It was going down, and that's when we bought ours, and the next year it went back to 30. It's like,
So this seems like a good time. I want to just summarize and see where we're at. The logical next steps would be for Shane and I to have a conversation with GPI. Verify that what's in their alternates is what I need them, they're not missing something, so we have real numbers. I certainly hope they're real numbers, but we'll verify. And then ask about, this, what can we add later scenario, as Taylor highlighted. With an eye towards not making the schedule or sequencing too difficult, but, can we add the solar panels later if funding becomes available?
without a change kind of thing.
Yeah, can you hold your pricing?
But we would need to go ahead with the structural piece.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
That's a no-brainer.
I think with without going, without, we've been speaking very specifically about all these alternates, but I think what I could do is come back to the select board with a proposed alternates that we'll accept and ones that we could potentially add later and look at those numbers. And I think we know what those things are. What we could add later is the re-roofing, the window replacement, the PV panels. The rest of them, I think, the math that everybody, we want to add now.
Maybe they can come up with a better casework. Better number.
Excuse me? Oh, a better number in that regard.
Better number in the,
I mean, so that's the question to ask. If they can't, I'm not going to accept it. So that's an awful lot of money, and you can buy furniture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go to the dump and get it.
Yeah.
Well, my thing
Put
is,
Steve on the lookout.
The two cabinets that are in there were custom made,
The
that are on top, the
recycling
bottom thing needs to go, but
As a general, part of the design I've tried to put together is not just do the cheapest
yeah.
build out I could. There's countertops and storage in Tina's office. We have the new copy mail room with built-in storage. There's going to be a really nice display countertop in the hallway. So I really wanted to bring that quality throughout, but also keep an eye towards, do we really need that storage in those two offices? So that's something that we'll verify that $24,000 number and then make a decision.
I think that makes sense from the quality standpoint. It's like, if you're buying a cabinet, you're still spending money, and the quality part of it is only a fraction of that overall expense. So you really owe it to the project and to the taxpayers and to have reasonable quality. It's still going to be $1.6 million, even if you buy the cheapest stuff you can get. That's not the place to save money.
And to take that thought just a second, a little bit further up here to just describe, we've got wood casings on all the new doors. But downstairs we've got carpet tile, vinyl base, and metal frames. So I'm trying to maintain this historic building as it is up here, but then being realistic with, about the basement without, adding all kinds of wood casework. And bringing the cost up. So that was part of how I was considering the project as a whole.
my thinking is we take out the roofing, the solar panels, and the re-grounding of the generator. Leaves us with 144 to either borrow or come up with grants. I think that'll give us a good building.
You could mention to them, as close as we are, they could split it with us. Gotta be a little Yankee in here somewhere.
I probably wouldn't do that as the architect on the project, but that doesn't preclude any owner from having that conversation with their potential contractor.
so the duration of the work, the calendar days, what happens if they exceed those days?
Thanks for asking that. Nothing.
Nothing.
The project continues. That information is useful from our perspective as a planning tool to make sure that we have that trailer rental for approximately that much time. But there's no liquidated damages in the project. If they go 221 days, they're not going to pay anything. And really, from a goodwill perspective, I've only done liquidated damages once and it didn't go well. So that's how you kind of put the bite into maintaining a calendar. From my experience, we'll be much better off with just getting started well, building a good relationship and rapport with whoever our contractor is. And there's just gonna, we're gonna be building during the winter. We're not building new, but there might be a snowstorm that they've got to shovel out their, pallet of lumber.
Will we be plowing? We do now.
I would need to look at how I wrote the specifications. I suspect that they'll want to take ownership of the areas they're working in and handle all that. Or they might just say, sure, if you guys are right there, plow us out on your way out.
And usually a job site ends up being effort from both sides. the town guys could come up and do a little bit of the normal work that they would do, but they're not gonna shovel out lumber piles and, the contractor would take care of their own spaces and.
Well, some of the lumber piles could probably go in
In the garage.
the garage to save them time from not shoveling.
There's probably an insurance issue with that.
Yeah.
Storing materials.
Storing materials in your building that they don't, isn't their problem. But back to the time question, that's a really hard one to, hold a contractor to. And there's just such a litany of reasons why something could get delayed. It's kind of like time is like money. We spent this whole time talking about the budget. As we get into the project, there might be electrical switchgear that's 6 or 9 months out and nobody knew. And we just have to work through it, and that's kind of the territory when it comes to construction projects.
That's a little, that unknown is even a little more daunting, considering that we'll be paying for a trailer for all of the extras to keep business as usual while all this is going on.
Absolutely. I can't say how the contractor is going to schedule their work, but they've all been through COVID. They all know that, the electrical switchgear is a real example. that stuff is like, some types of that stuff is like years out from a manufacturing standpoint.
Yeah.
So I would depend on either of these contractors to know what to start ordering now and to asking those questions and to getting those purchase orders in and doing the best reasonable effort they can to avoid that kind of scenario.
How do we pay for it? Do we have to give a deposit or as you go or?
That can be up for a contract negotiation with them. You kind of might ask for a
To
deposit.
a percentage, yeah.
I've also done very large projects where they don't get paid until after the first month of work. Those are usually the house.
We'll have retainage.
We'll have retainage, yep. And monthly. They just invoice monthly. I review all of the documentation, make sure it's appropriate, and then cut a check.
If any of these alternates start to go in a different direction as far as costs, like we're finding that they're going to be considerably more than what they have presented, will we have an option to possibly not do that?
Well, maybe one way to think about that is if we sign a contract with one of these contractors within 60 days from when the bids were submitted, we're well within that window. And as we've been talking, it sounds like we're going to accept most of them except for 5, 6, and 10, I think is what Tom said.
6.
Keeping 5.
6, 7, and 10.
So, Melissa, what I'm trying to get at is as long as we sign a contract with these numbers within the next 60 days, that's your contract number.
Right.
Barring a pandemic and, a situation like that, they'll be required to hold that number.
You just spooked me a little bit when you said that some things can be delayed, because usually when things are delayed, they end up costing more money.
Well,
So,
and that's,
but in this case, it's contractual.
it's an act, or,
Well, don't say act of war, because,
I was gonna say an act of God. Yeah. I think where it's gonna cost more, Melissa, is in the time. Right, because if we can't turn power on, when they were planning on, that's gonna delay things.
We have a generator.
Well, not if there's no main distribution panel. So, that's an example I've heard electrical engineers about an awful lot.
I think that sort of illustrates also when we go through that list and we hold some things aside, if, let's just say, the contractor turns out he loses a little bit of money on one of the choices, but we haven't chosen another one yet, it becomes almost an opportunity for him to make up a little where there may have been a loss. So the more that we can, I think this is what you were talking about before too, was like the more we can commit to and have part of the initial contract,
Right.
we're gonna be safer in the stability of the number because of that. Like if the contractor starts to get behind on any of these line items, they'll look for any place they can make it up, and it'll be in the additional stuff, you know.
Spot on. And they are very good. I'm not speaking specifically. Contractors are very good at getting paid. And, I do my diligence and I review change orders and I make sure numbers and materials are appropriate. But there's just things I won't see to check that stuff. So as much as we can secure now is, spot on.
I just wanted to mention, Tina pointed out on this chart of all the expenses so far, one thing it did not include in there yet, because we just paid it, is $12,800 for the permit to the state. So that, I'll have a revised version of this at some point anyway, but, so that 128,000, just add 12,800 to it.
And as far as the architectural engineering things to go, we're substantially through the bulk of the work.
Tina?
I think the construction administration portion is a smaller percentage of the overall A&E fees.
Have we looked into what one of these trailers cost?
I don't even know where to begin. I looked at Jamaican Cottage Shops. They have a conference room trailer.
Yeah, Hunter has one.
Like a job.
Yeah.
Maybe they'd rent us one.
More like a job trailer that's been permanently put down in twice, it seems.
Well, that's, we don't need much. You guys can share a room, we'll have swing space for
Yeah, room for
others.
3 desks. Well, I mean, Jeremiah probably will work from home.
Yeah,
We'll come and go, but we can squeeze in.
right, I'll probably just
Oh,
do
also,
2 days,
Well, you
1 or
can
2 days a
you can
week.
use town, we can
Yeah,
use
I was
town
gonna say, if
hall.
we're putting the internet in the town hall,
Yeah.
most people can go there. It's only people who need to get in the vault, who
Yeah.
need to be here.
And just heat the downstairs,
Yeah,
doable.
it's gonna be a
We
lot
will
of stuff.
survive.
Yeah.
The sun always comes up.
I'm just already seeing the end.
Oh, we got to start.
I know, but I have to live like that, because I have to know that it's
The only way to
gonna
get
end.
through it is
But a trailer doesn't
to-
220 days
Needs a
made me
bathroom,
feel good,
needs 2 offices, we got one for you guys,
yeah.
and one for a swing space for Jeremiah,
Yeah.
Will, myself, Liam, but people,
I was thinking I've come across those, like a job trailer rental or something.
Right.
They have heat in the
Yeah.
bathroom and,
Yeah.
have that, but I can't remember where it was. I'd have to.
I think the Jamaican Cottage Shop one's pricey, but maybe we could negotiate.
Yeah.
well, the contractor could tell us.
I can also just ask that question.
Okay.
For job trailers.
Okay.
They weren't very friendly on that little garbage shed thing there, bottle shed.
Oh,
They wouldn't go down on their price at all.
Jamaica.
RK Miles.
No, you priced it at Jamaica and they wouldn't go down.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
So they're not that civically enthused.
So that's our only other option is we could just convince Jim to do the renovation for us.
If you're gonna need more than 300 days.
For this first question we have on here, basically, it's for the town office renovation fund from the building reserve fund, so we gotta put everything from the reserve fund into this.
Do we have any current commitments of that money for the town hall or?
One of the things that John just put in a proposal for us to do the ADA compliance piece, and that's, we can already have $4,000 in the bank. Your proposal is 6,400?
6, yeah.
Yeah, 6,400. I forwarded that on to the town hall renovation committee to consider, and so even if we do go forward, it's only a $2,400 hit.
Do we need matching funds for anything?
No,
No, they gave us the money.
we got the money already, we haven't done the project.
Right.
I did ask if they sent me something today saying there's a, deadline for mini grants, and so I asked if I could get another one. So we'll see what happens.
And Shane, you said it would be good to have that ADA work done before town meeting next year.
Ideally,
You could be looking at expending construction costs this fall if the timeline goes well with designing a lift or addition or what have you on the building.
It kind of depends on what comes out of it.
So maybe, I guess I was sort of sneaking up on, maybe we should reserve a little bit of that money and not allocate the entire budget.
That's why I was suggesting we get 2,900, just maybe 200,000 at this time,
Yeah,
and make adjustments as we go forward. But I think that my feeling with the town hall project is, other than that ADA piece, maybe hold off on everything, except the second floors we're gonna get refinished before, the wood is down, it's still been put down, but there's no
Before
finish
the
coat on
chairs
it.
go back
Yeah,
in.
well, and the chairs, that should be a self-funded project, in
That'll
my
be
view.
way down the road too, probably.
Yeah, that's just, to me, not a priority right now. That's just me.
So basically, we were putting the town hall project on hold for almost a year.
yeah.
And we think
Your
that
call.
we think that
think we have
that
to.
construction project's not gonna become more expensive after being on hold for a year.
Oh, that one definitely is, but I mean, it's one or the other.
Yeah.
I think,
I don't know what they had next on there.
We've been piecing that building
Well,
together over the years.
what's
This
next
is a
for that
full
project is just finishing the second story floors, and that's not a whole lot of money. That's certainly, I imagine, gonna be less than 10,000, much less. And then,
I would think so.
that kind of buttons that up. And then, the next project was gonna be,
Insulation.
the insulation was out on there, but also just the chairs, the seating.
And there's the moisture issue.
Yeah.
Right, we're gonna look into the moisture piece as well. We have basement, what's,
Northern basement systems.
northeast basement is gonna come here in next week, I think, or the week after, to do an inspection and make some recommendations. So see what happens there. A lot of moving parts.
So the 200,000 would use up the current budget, and then in July, some more would go back in.
Yeah, we're not gonna expend anything.
No, the 290,000 is what, the 90,000 is what we have, 190 actually from this year. The 100,000 not till July 1 will get moved.
So do we want to just commit what we have now, and then nothing else is going to happen before July, probably? Is that what we're saying?
Well, I think if we can get someone to finish the floors in the second story of the town hall, we might jump on it. Yeah.
Why don't we just commit 100,000 from the reserve fund now? So there's still 90,000 in there to cover anything that comes up, and then once we hit July 1, we can have another meeting and vote the other 100,000 in.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
That sounds good.
Then we're not spending what we don't have necessarily.
Yeah.
Good move.
Tom, are you ready for a motion on that?
Yep.
I move to allocate $100,000 from the town buildings reserve fund for the town office renovation project.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Also, just a thought is, we have a meeting next Monday, and if there's, I don't know how much work can be done between now and next Monday, that maybe the board can hold off on a decision and wait for the next meeting.
Potentially, I mean, all I'm gonna do is, like I said, call GPI, verify numbers, ensure that the numbers we're looking at tonight, there's no issues with, given those discrepancies. And then I think, we'll be able to add up that base, add to the base bid, as we've talked about, and also discuss, can we pull the trigger at 50% or whatever makes sense down the road. That's the kind of, action item I have from tonight.
Sounds like a good step before committing.
And Shane, you could make that a Zoom call this week if you want.
Well, before we get too much into that, let's just move on to the next one, which is what we're talking about now. 7B, Town Office Renovation Project, consider award of construction contract. Yeah, now we can go, boy.
Well, I thought we weren't decided yet.
Well, I think that's the point, is just.
Yeah, we were just
we can
moving into the
Yeah.
right.
We're talking about
Why?
it, which means we should be on it.
And so we wouldn't commit to either one right now.
Right.
You would talk to both?
That's a good question. I would start with GPI since they're the apparent low bidder. If through that conversation they need to adjust their alternate numbers, and if I do a little math and it comes awfully close to all seasons, then I would talk to all seasons. But I think I would start with GPI in that regard.
Does anybody have experience? I know we've done work with All Seasons.
Yeah,
but-
we've been working with All Seasons. I've had no issues with them. We are having, we were overcharged a bit on the town hall project, but that was just math that was not correct. We're getting it all back. And there was a change order to our advantage as well. But my experience with them has been excellent. Dave is really responsive. You give a guy a call, you get a call back in, minutes, if not hours. And they've been great. I've worked with GPI in the past when it was under previous ownership 25 years ago, but they're a reputable company as well out of
And
Brattleboro.
I have a couple of other projects going on with GPI,
Yeah.
mostly elevator retrofits. It's smooth.
But we're lucky.
I would characterize GPI the same way that Shane did All Seasons.
Well, I think it's good to know that, because it's always nice to be able to take the low bidder and not feel like you're sacrificing quality or anything.
Yeah, I think we got lucky with two really good
Good
vendors.
choices.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was, for what it's worth, I was pleased with all of the attendees at the walkthrough. I haven't worked with some of those companies in Rutland, but they've been around, they've got references, so I think we got a good turnout and a good result.
Fair enough.
So what I'm hearing is we're gonna wait for more information and come back to this next week.
Yeah.
I support that.
Okay?
The people that own these companies, how old are they?
They're a lot older than I am.
Both companies.
Careful, be careful.
You're probably my age.
They've certainly got
If that helps, I
20
don't
plus
know.
years experience,
Yeah.
30 plus.
Yeah, they're seasoned, both seasoned,
They're all
that I could see.
Yeah.
Just curiosity.
Well, I appreciate all of your efforts on this, and your follow-up, and I look forward to hearing from you next week.
As difficult as this conversation was, it was very productive, so I was glad to have with everybody here.
And you probably don't need to be here at the next meeting unless the board wants them here.
I would prefer not. With a 1-year-old at home, there's a
Whose birthday is today?
a bit of a faux pas on my part. So,
He won't remember that it.
yeah, my wife will.
Yes, you will, she's not gonna forget.
I'll make sure I communicate with Shane this week. I'll call Joe tomorrow and give you an update. And
Is there any board member who'd like to participate in any conversations we have? Or- 'cause I don't,
We've done some time.
Well,
Yeah.
it's difficult. I mean,
we talked about a lot of things tonight. I think I'm gonna focus solely on making sure the numbers are right, making sure that they're amenable to adding on and seeing if they can hold prices as a, gratuity to us, later in the project. And then that's what I'll report back, to you. And, if it does come out close to all seasons, I'll let Shane know and maybe we have the same conversation.
I don't feel the need to be part of the conversation, but if there's any need, or if anybody would like me to chime in on something, I'm willing to.
I could see a scenario where there might be more questions next Monday, but I'll do my best to try to be succinct and to the point so you can all make a decision.
Great,
Thank you.
thank
I
you.
appreciate your enthusiasm.
Yeah.
Thank you.
He's been working on this a long time.
Well, there was a 3.5-year gap.
Yes, that's right.
It's been going since before I was on the
Thank you.
board.
Yeah.
And I'm going
Thanks,
on.
everybody.
Thank you very much.
Safe ride home.
Alright, last item, who wants it?
Happy birthday to little guy.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I think I've got at least another hour and a half of daylight. I'll see you guys next week.
Yeah, the bugs aren't too bad
No,
yet.
not yet.
Take advantage, because it's coming.
Yep. See ya.
I don't know. If we'll go down there, maybe I'll go grab some green up bags. I might take one of those posters.